We are back. It is another edition of Colts Corner with myself, Kevin Bowe, and Eddie Garrison across the way, and we are coming at you Monday morning after the Colts have lost now 6 straight games and officially eliminated from the playoffs, I guess, on Saturday evening. And this pod will be maybe a little different than our usual Monday pod. We'll still, go over the game itself and what I liked, what I didn't like, and then definitely want to hit the big picture stuff because no point in ignoring the elephant in the room. I get why people are curious about it. Certainly I am as well. And who knows what could happen a week from today when it is Black Monday across the NFL. If they bring everybody back, Eddie, do they just use the same letter they used last year?
I would hope not.
Maybe just change a few words, like it's, you taking your buddy's assignment back at Decatur Central High School?
No, you see, it was the other way around. People were taking my assignments.
Of course, yeah. I should have clarified that. So we'll get to that. I know some Twitter questions also hit on the big picture stuff, but we'll go over the Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen combo there. But yeah, overall game-wise, Eddie, just I guess you go back to Saturday and it's just wild, frankly. You go back to 2000. I was looking this up. There's been 96 teams that have started 8-2, and the Colts are the first to have not made the playoffs. And you look at a stat like that since 2000, of course, from 2000 to 2019, you only had 6 playoff teams in each conference. Since 2020, of course, the Ballard era and a little bit of the Steichen era has benefited from the additional playoff team. And yet that didn't matter this year. You couldn't even get to week 18 with your playoff chances still available. And it is definitely a two-way street. The Colts got little to no help at all. It is wild how little help they got. But they also did none of their part in trying to, recover from the sinking ship that I guess is still sinking. 6 straight losses, 7 of 8. I want to say the Raiders, maybe the only team that has a longer losing streak currently in the NFL. Maybe I'd have to double check that, but pretty ugly. And yesterday, I think it largely went, how you would expect it in the sense of Jacksonville controlled that game. I know it might not have indicated that scoreboard throughout, but, you look at the yardage total at the end of the game, they really were in control. It's just a matter of time before the scoreboard indicated that. It eventually did. Kind of a wild little sequence there at the end of counting cat and mouse and Riley Leonard's Hail Mary. When the ball was in the air, I thought to myself it had a chance. Alec Pierce is down there somewhere, right? But cannot run underneath it. So Colts now will head to Houston, and we'll see. I assume it'll be Riley Leonard, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think, was it Schefter or Rappaport that had that on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it might have been one of them. Again, my thought is, I guess, to kind of get that question out of the way, I think the Anthony Richardson vision impairment is real, and I think putting him out there in a game setting, there's some hesitancy. Now, we'll see if another week, if that clears up any, because technically there's only 3 quarterbacks around. Brett Rippon, the Vikings brought him back. So, Leonard start, Rivers backup. That's probably what I would do. And, if you're bringing back everybody for 2026, there's a possibility Riley Leonard's your week 1 starter, depending on Daniel Jones and how that situation goes. I'm assuming Richardson is gone, but I don't think Sunday's going to go very well for him, given the defense you're about to face in your first ever NFL start. But still, I think it'd be beneficial for him to experience that and not, if you need him in September at all, not to run into any of that.
2 teams, by the way, have a longer losing streak than the Indianapolis Colts. You had one of them correct.
Is it Cardinals?
Yes. Raiders have lost 10 in a row. Cardinals have lost 8. And the Chiefs have lost 5 ever since they defeated the Colts.
Yeah. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Let's briefly dive into the game in terms of what you did not like. Kevin, starting with the offense, you called it a dinosaur offensive approach yesterday for the Colts in their loss to Jacksonville.
Yeah, we're back to the Seattle game. It's just it's an archaic offense. And I guess let me throw in the caveat. The Phillip Rivers story is awesome. It's a movie. It's incredible. He doesn't need an actor. He can play himself. He's that unique of a character. All of it. We're going to look back on it 5 to 10, 15 years down the road, and we're going to be like, that was cool, as long as you don't realize the current playoff drought the Colts are in. But, it's a hell of a story. Now, NFL reality has set in. If you want to continue the movie analogy, Friday Night Lights, Permian has met the Dallas Carter. He just looked his age. And again, they sprinkled in some good. Not going to deny that. But when I say a dinosaur offense, Eddie, basically I mean this. You average 3.7 yards per play on Sunday. That would be the third fewest in the Steichen era. The second fewest was the Seattle game 2 weeks ago. So with Rivers in the 3 games, you've been 3.6 yards per play and 3.7 yards per play in 2 of those games. You only had one drive of more than 30 yards yesterday. I mean, Ashton Dulin kick return game sparked so much of your scoring, really. And I think the limitations with Rivers that we don't probably acknowledge enough comes from the run game. Like, how many plays did Trevor Lawrence make with his legs yesterday?
A ton.
A ton of plays. And again, I'm not talking about just the natural, actual scrambling of Lawrence scoring 2 touchdowns. It's just the extension of some stuff in pocket. I mean, hell, Rivers getting sacked by running into his own offensive lineman. So you just have a lot of restrictions. Obviously, the Jonathan Taylor aspect of it, I think, is contributing to it. And, if you look at Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr., I mean, their numbers. I want to say it was 8 targets and 2 catches for them yesterday. And those are your outside wideouts.
Also worth noting that Pittman was dealing with a bit of a calf injury.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like he was out there as much. I haven't looked at the snap count, but...
Yeah, I don't think he missed as much time as maybe... I don't know if it indicated on TV or not, but 2 catches and 8 targets. It just... Ugh. So, Rivers said after the game he thought it was the worst he's played so far. I would agree with that. I thought it was late a couple times. Could have been picked off on a few occasions. Obviously, you had the huge pick there. Well, a hell of a tackle by Josh Downs there to save the touchdown. So, just a dinosaur offense. That's where you're at right now.
Item number 2 that you did not like from yesterday's loss, the Sauce injury seemed to re-aggravate that calf issue, and hopefully it's, he can heal it during the course of the offseason.
I always thought the Jacksonville game was the game that'd be circled for his return, Eddie, but I guess I assumed the Colts would practice more than one time last week. With the short week, they only practiced once, Friday, and Christmas being on a Thursday.
And comparatively speaking, Jacksonville still practiced on Christmas.
I believe they did, and also they had the extra day, of course, playing on a Sunday, so they might even practice Wednesday. I forget exactly what their practice cadence was, but yeah, I believe they did. So when the fact that Sauce, and I believe he did work out on Christmas, I don't want to act like he didn't do anything, but still, the fact that he only practiced one time, I was kind of like, damn, that's, I don't know, I'm not necessarily loving that. When you look at Sauce on the field yesterday, I don't know if this is ironic or not, but I believe all 7 of the Colts quarterback hits took place in the first half yesterday. And that was when Sauce played. And then the second half, he leaves, I believe, on the second drive, and you don't have a quarterback hit on Lawrence the rest of the game. So, again, sometimes with the corners, you kind of got to get in the weeds to really feel their impact. Statistically, it's kind of hard to feel it. I'm trying to think of, he made the one tackle near the goal line. I think Jacoby Myers caught a comeback ball on him. And then the next play, I want to say Brian Thomas Jr., he, was in on a pass break up there. So it's not like he gets targeted a ton. But I will say, Eddie, I was looking down from the press box yesterday. I don't know if you feel this way when you watch. I mean, you obviously watch the Pacers on a very religious basis, given you are the radio producer for them. But over time, you watch enough of, and I think any fan can frankly speak to this, you get used to guys and their body language. I always think this way about Lance Stevenson. Lance Stevenson, that man faked more injuries than my kids fake crying. And it was like, wait a minute, is he really hurt? Or is it Stan Van Gundy that says the ball has healing powers? As soon as you touch the ball, all of a sudden everything in your body feels better. So I'm watching Sauce yesterday, and there are times during the game before he left where I'm like, that man does not look healthy to me. Now, again, is that just natural body language? Or is that real? And, he ends up getting the wrap on the lower left leg and tightness in the calf there. So, I mean, obviously injuries have played into this, Eddie. It's the sole reason. But it is wild that the on-field impact of this trade, A.D. Mitchell did more for the Jets than Sauce Gardner did for the Colts. That's just amazing. And again, injuries have obviously played into it. But boy, 3.5 games, right? That's what it'll be here. And Sauce really has not had injuries
No.
in his career. He's been a pretty healthy guy. I assume he won't play on Sunday. But man, do you need him big time next year with the Ward situation and Justin Wally coming back from the ACL? And I don't know. Feels like Kenny Moore maybe either has lost a step or isn't the best fit for this defense. Just, yeah, you need Sauce, obviously, big time here. So early return, and we'll get more in the Sauce trade because I feel like it's just a popular topic when we're getting into the evaluation of the Colts organization right now.
Yeah, the final thing to cover what you did not like. I thought they did a good job early in the game, Kevin, controlling Trevor Lawrence and kind of getting him off rhythm, as you mentioned, whatever it was, those 7 quarterback hits all in the first half, and it really affected the timing and the confidence of Lawrence. But in that second half, they did a really poor job of containing him within the pocket. He was able to, manipulate the pocket, get out and evade pressure. Of course, he had those 2 touchdown runs as well. So controlling Lawrence was something you didn't like from the Colts defense.
Yeah, and honestly, it's probably best if I would have just said just kind of controlling the game. When you think about how the game unfolded, why the hell did they run the hook and ladder on the first drive?
I'm not sure.
When I saw that, I thought like some Jags fan had won a charity prize at a Shad Khan event in the offseason. They're like, you get to call a play, and you get to pick the game that you call the play in.
Did you watch the Sunday night game last night?
Well, yeah.
The Bears did that inside 2 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Well, and the Bills did too. The Bills did it against the Eagles. But again, those are like 4th and 10s. It was a 4th and 10 for the Bills, at least, where you had to have it. This is the opening drive of the game when they're just moving at will. And I thought that was a bit odd. Obviously, the decision to throw the ball with Jermaine Pratt in coverage, it was a great play by Pratt to get the head around and make that play. I was a little surprised Liam Cohen went for the 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter and snuck it. Like, it just seemed like Jacksonville's stuff was a lot of self-inflicted. That just kind of halted them. But for the most part, they moved it at will. I mean, what was the yardage total? I mean, it had to be nearly double the Colts there. So
370 for Jacksonville, 204 for Indianapolis.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big discrepancy. So yeah, I just thought Jacksonville largely
and the Colts had one more drive.
Yeah. There you go. But nice early pass rush. Turnovers are huge, but I was kind of watching it like, yeah, the Jags are the better team. I think eventually they're going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that Pratt interception saved some awful clock management, I thought, by the Colts late in the first half. When they were trying to, I don't know what they were trying to do backed up there when I think somebody ran out of bounds and 3rd and 7, they decided to throw it, and Taylor. Man,
that would have been Taylor running out of bounds.
Throwing the ball to Taylor is just, boy, that's a coin flip at best situation, it seems like. Yeah.
Like I've said on the podcast, it's when you get him moving, that's the issue.
Yeah. No. That's a very good point.
It's whenever you get him on those screens or those, kind of stationary checkdowns, or let him just focus on catching the football and not moving his legs at the same time. Let's dive into what you did like. We'll start with one particular player, Ashton Dulin, 2 big returns, Kevin. He got the Colts jump-started offensively with that big return to start the game.
How do you not love it? I mean, how do you not love Ashton Dulin? He's just a great NFL story. And he's back. He's from back off injured reserve. He has the 2 big kick returns. He makes a couple plays in punt coverage. Maybe it's a little nerdy and maybe it's not the most sexy thing in the world, but I mean, without Dulin, I don't think it's a guarantee this offense gets to 17 points.
I mean, you saw what Jacksonville did after those 2 returns. They didn't kick it to him again.
Right. They started kicking it through the end zone. Yeah. I mean, the Colts had 1 drive over 30 yards yesterday. 1 offensive drive. That is awful.
And it took him 15 plays to score.
Yeah, it took Will Mallory making a hell of a catch, right? So, Dulin providing that was huge. And obviously last week he had the huge fumble on kick returns there. So, again, part of this is maybe just more of a career thing. I just want to give a little acknowledgement to Ashton Dulin. But in all seriousness, I thought if the Colts would have won that game, he was definitely deserving of a game ball.
Yeah. And then you like the start in general from the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, you're up 10-0. I mean, that again, they gave you the gift on the hook and ladder, but playing from ahead with Rivers, I think is a massive recipe. That's massive ingredient, I guess I should say, to staying in the game, being in it. And, that obviously didn't happen against San Francisco. And, again, this is weird. It's, I'm trying to isolate the Rivers movie versus like, oh, wait, I also have to talk about him like he's an NFL quarterback. And, when you look around the league, Eddie, there's been a couple teams that have won with their third stringer this year. They've largely won it in very different ways than your third stringer actually coming in there and playing good football for you. And the Colts, of course, haven't found all that complementary needs. But, man, there's just so much stress. So much stress in the other parts of the game. And really so much stress on Rivers as a passer when he's in the game. Because the run game is going to be stymied. The downfield passing game is going to be stymied. I mean, you just mentioned, you said it was a 15-play drive on the touchdown drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
they had 2 drives over 30 yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be so methodical when you look at that. And, so awful.
And both of those drives, one of them had the duel and return. So, yeah. There you go. Before we get into what everyone's tuning into, I feel like Kevin and Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, just a hat tip to Phillip Rivers and just what he's done the last 3 weeks for this team.
Oh, sure. Yeah, again, I mean, the story is awesome. You see his emotion pregame, you see his emotion postgame. I mean, he's got the kids in the building. Now they're renting the house for Christmas here. Yeah, I mean, all of it. It's
got the high school team too.
Yeah. Honestly, if you weren't a fan of the Colts, you'd probably appreciate it even more just seeing exactly what he's doing. I guess it can be hard for some fans to separate yourself from where you're at as a franchise as a whole. I think I've been pretty consistent throughout. I probably would have rather have seen Leonard. Do I think Rivers played better than I thought? I do. I don't know if it turned out to be maybe overwhelmingly better. Maybe the Leonard thing would have just been, hey, man, it's more volatile. Like, you still go 0-3, but maybe there are some bigger lows and maybe a few bigger highs, but in the end, it's just a wash.
And maybe there was some concern potentially about a further aggravation or significance to that knee injury.
Yeah, the knee injury is weird. I mean, the fact that he ended up practicing full the first day after it with nothing on the knee, I mean, you hardly ever see that.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know exactly what that aspect was, but yeah, I mean, Derek Jeter gift, respect hat to Phillip Rivers, just awesome. An awesome human. I think it'll help his Hall of Fame candidacy. I think humans are biased, and I think even though it's not like he set the world on fire, I think people will be impressed by that. So he's one of a kind. One of a kind. I know people have asked, like, oh, he should come back and be a coach. I can't imagine he's going to leave his son and coaching him. I think life is pretty good for him down there, and I don't think being a position coach in the NFL is anything that he wants to do anytime soon here, especially with, a 2-year-old kid or whatever it is. So, awesome story. But the NFL reality, unfortunately, is hard to push aside. And I think Rivers has done a great job throughout this process, Eddie, of acknowledging that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's been very accepting of the questions about the uniqueness to his story, which you appreciate, but he also is quick to point out, like, we need to win.
Yeah.
There are some teams that have won with third-string quarterbacks this season. Like, we need to find and if the Colts would have just won one more, like, if you get to week 18, everything's out the window. I mean, you saw Houston, I think, play with a little bit of a piano on their back at times against the Chargers. They were fortunate they got some breaks in that game with Cameron Dicker and all that. CJ Stroud threw some awful interceptions in that game. So, I think that's a disappointing aspect of it is, you get to one 60-minute football game, the Browns can beat the Steelers. The Dolphins can beat the Bucks. The Vikings can beat the Lions. When you think about some third-string QBs that have done it throughout the league. So, yeah.
Did you mention this key stat that's in your 5 things learned? Colts losing streak continues at home.
Is that the since 2001?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd say the other stat that is pretty, I guess, as we transition into Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen.
Well, I guess we should share it for the pod if they didn't see it online yet.
Well, yeah. I thought I said that to lead off today's pod. But yeah, since 2000, 96 teams have started 8-2 or better, and the Colts are the first team to have not made the playoffs. And again,
another feat for Chris Ballard.
Right. And as I said earlier, that's with an additional playoff spot available to you. Obviously, from 2000 to 2019, it was still at 6 teams. And you didn't even make it to week 18 with a playoff chance being available to you. I think the other thing that's really damning about this current situation, and maybe it's more Steichen than anything, the fact that you're 2-9 against the Texans and the Jags in the Steichen era is Awful. And Eddie, think about that. 2-9, and one of your 2 wins was the meaningless game last year over Mac Jones in overtime. And look at the Jags. I mean, they got a first-year head coach. They have a new GM. Look at Houston. D'Amico Ryans was hired when? The same coaching cycle as Shane Steichen. 2-9 against those teams. That, to me, is just, it's probably the biggest Steichen negative, honestly, when evaluating him as a head coach.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
I think it comes down to this. When you mention D'Amico Ryans and you look at Seattle, look at New England, Jacksonville, for example, Chicago, all these teams, Los Angeles recently, the Chargers, all these teams, Detroit would fall into this category as well. You look at these teams and how they've been able to turn around with their head coaches. And I think there's an element that all those guys have that I don't know if Shane Steichen has is Denver as well. Their head coaches all have a little bit of a-hole in them. Like, they're not afraid to rip some dudes. They have a very, very high standard in which they're wanting their players to play at and practice at and prepare at. And I don't think, from what we've seen so far in the Shane Steichen era as the head coach, that we have seen that out of these Colts teams.
Yeah, I can hear where you're coming from. You certainly don't get the public a-hole from a media standpoint.
Or even on the sideline, you don't really see it either.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see energy and passion, but, from an undressing standpoint, it's maybe the officials. It's never,
right.
From a player, I guess if you want to look there. Granted, I don't know how much of the, sideline undressing you see towards players around the league. I'll kind of settle back on my general Steichen thought wearing the head coach hat. And look, you're going to look at the playoff field, Eddie, of 14 teams, and you'll probably see a split of offensive play callers and head coaches versus CEOs. I would have to do the math, but it'll probably be pretty even in terms of that. But I think at times he does lose the pulse of his entire football team or not acknowledge it as consistently 7 days a week as it needs to be.
Right now, that number is at 6. It could go to 7, depending on Carolina.
Yeah, so 7 would be half of it. So, yeah, it just... And I think that's a difficult thing to maintain when your offensive unit needs so much damn attention. It's not like you have a quarterback over there that all of a sudden is consistent or whatever, trustworthy, or, I guess Daniel Jones was for a couple of months, but that's it. And even the Daniel Jones thing, he's still new to this offense, and there's just a lot of babying, frankly. I don't know if that's the right word, but I would use there. Okay, I guess as we transition to the Ballard, Steichen, big picture debate, let's just go over all the basics here before we get going. Last division titles, 2014. I believe it's 25 teams have won a division since you last won one, and every team in the AFC South has won one multiple times. Your last playoff win is 2018. I believe that number is 22 teams have won a playoff game since you last have, and that number could be added to Chicago, Carolina, Denver, Pittsburgh. And then your last playoff trip, if Carolina were to win, I think it's only the Jets and the Falcons would have a longer playoff drought than you currently have. That would be 5 years. So, again, those are the kind of hardcore elements to it. And I'll point out what I said earlier. I think what gets lost in some of the historical data, Eddie, like when you look at, again, since 2000, blah, 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 we've added an additional playoff team. That's huge. When you went from 6 to 7, that's big when we're talking about 16 teams, a third wild card spot. That's how they made it in 2000. 2000 was the third wild card team. You were the 7 seed taking on Buffalo there in that round 1, and that's how you would have made it this year, of course. I think another thing on the Ballard side of it, it's now the second late season collapse you've had with 2 different head coaches. So how much of that is GM based, roster based, however you want to slice it there. And again, eliminated before week 18 now for the second straight year. That I think also kind of adds to it. So, I'm trying not to just kind of throw in the towel in the Ballard conversation. But Eddie, I said on this very pod last year after week 17, he should have been fired. So, here I am saying the same thing. Like it just, and I guess my first question would be this: are we evaluating 9 years of Chris Ballard or 1 year?
I think you have to evaluate the entire thing, the entire body of work, right?
Well, then there's no debate.
Right.
So that to me is a loss. Like if it, and I agree with you, I guess, to answer my own question, but if it's a 9-year evaluation, there's no debate. Now, okay, if it's the 1 year evaluation, what do we say? Injuries are an excuse? Valid excuse?
Yeah, but I can't hear you out on that.
Right.
Look at San Francisco.
Right,
I mean,
right. Yeah,
Kittle went down. Purdy went down. Bosa went down. Like they've had
Warner,
Fred Warner. They've had dudes go down.
Right.
And they've been able to replace all of them and find production.
Again, I don't think it's the most egregious of the 9 Ballard seasons, but yes, I would largely agree on I don't think it's a valid excuse. Where I do have a little bit of pause is this. And again, I'm probably shifting hats here from my own opinion to what the Colts will do. Carly Gordon used the I word this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have many words to go off of. We have no actions really to go off of with her, or very few, I should say. But we don't have many words either. But she mentioned injuries. You can't commit to anything because you don't know how seasons will unfold. What if injuries happen? Well, injuries have happened. Is that her out on this of running it back? And then the biggest area I pause in the Carly Gordon element of all this is the trade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you could slice and dice the trade on several levels. When you make a trade of that magnitude, you obviously are saying we think Sauce Gardner is an elite all-pro player at a premium position, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that is just one little... I could argue that's 1/3 of the trade. The other 2 chunks of the trade are you're indirectly saying Daniel Jones is our quarterback of the future. You're indirectly saying Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are our decision makers of the future. You basically are handing them contract extensions without handing them contract extensions, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That trade had 3 very key elements to it, even though the flashy one is just the 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell for Sauce Gardner. And so that's where I go back on this trade. And I think we've gotten into this in the last couple of pods, but Eddie, you and I probably haven't had this conversation. Hindsight can get really 20/20 on moves. Always does. Sports fans, sports analysts, et cetera, et cetera. But I remember saying this in the time the trade happened. The fact that you committed to Daniel Jones in the manner you did by making that trade.
Yep.
The fact that you committed to Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. Now, again, you can admit you're wrong, but let's just talk about it in that world. The fact that you committed to them was such a massive trade, in my opinion, was beyond premature.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Sauce Gardner trade available 365 days out of the year? Of course not. There's actually a real trade deadline, so it couldn't be available, in late November and December. But Eddie, I think back every Thursday, my mom and I, we would go to the grocery. Growing up, she taught the same elementary school that I went to. We go to the grocery store, and I know which aisles I could pick out a candy bar from and which aisles I couldn't pick out a candy bar from. And oftentimes it was, maybe a little cheap. Maybe we're going the bazooka gum.
There's no problems with bazooka gum.
No. Trust me, for an 8-year-old, definitely not. But I wasn't getting Big League Chew every week, I guess, to answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean you miss out on potentially acquiring a player like Sauce Gardner? Yeah, perhaps it does. But that's also the reality of the bed that Chris Ballard had made himself, or the career that Daniel Jones has had. Like, before Halloween, you said that Daniel Jones was your franchise quarterback for X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
Before Halloween, you said Chris Ballard deserves multiple years, even though his resume said what at that point. And I think that's where, honestly, big picture, that's a little worrisome, I think, that Carly Ursay Gordon greenlighted. I get there's a lot of people out there who say, hey, it's about time you push your chips in the middle of the table. Darn right. Okay, that's fine. But it's also not just a Madden video game. There are some ramifications when you make a trade of that magnitude.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're seeing it. When you make a trade like that, you put so much pressure on the individual player. Anytime there's a 3-for-1, 4-for-1, however you want to slice it, trade, there's so much on that player. To where when Sauce only plays 3.5 games, the magnitude of the trade just carries so much more weight. So again, that's what kind of gives me pause in this, Eddie, of like, wait a minute. If she greenlighted that trade, she's going back on her word 2 months later. Now, you and I have had this debate before, and in our market, we compare the Pacers and the Colts a whole lot.
Yeah.
I would say one of the more brilliant moves Kevin Pritchard ever made as Pacers president was admitting he was wrong on Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner.
Yep.
Yes, at one point, did he believe that was right? He did.
And the other one is getting their 2026 first-round pick back.
Well, that too. But admitting that the Sabonis-Turner thing was not working was a masterclass. First off, it's a credit as a human being in the humility department of saying, you know what? I know it's not going to look good on me, but I need to admit that I'm wrong. I need to pivot. I need to try and, build it in a different manner. And sometimes, especially in professional sports, when you're those type of people, pivoting before you're too stubborn enough to do so is a critical element in finding a different pathway. So would that be Carly doing it right now if she were to do that? Anything else before we pivot to maybe a different direction?
I think when you just look at the way in the total body of work of how this team has missed the playoffs, and I get there are people out there that may be like, hey, we still haven't seen what this core has been able to do yet. But I'm like, at the same time, we have. Like, I get you want to see what all these players look like when they have a competent quarterback, but Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce now, Bernard Ryman, Quentin Nelson, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore, all these guys, Zaire Franklin, are on their second or going on their second or going on their third contracts, and it's like their careers are not just starting anymore. They're almost over. And it's to the point where I think you just have to tear it down to the studs and redo the entire thing.
Yeah.
And I know you're not ready to go there because I know there's fans that aren't ready to go there, and I totally get it. But like when you look at the way this team has missed the playoffs, 2022, 2023, again this year,
2021, really
yes,
apart,
thank you. That was the year I was thinking of, not 2022. But like you look at all those years and how they missed the playoffs, most of these guys have been on the team for these collapses.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. Again, when I've heard people, like when you ask the question, why would you bring Ballard back for a 10th year? It's met with like, well, it's not an ideal time to reset. I don't know if there's ever an ideal time to reset.
Right.
And I just don't know if that all of a sudden means the person then deserves a 10th crack at it. Just because it's not who contributed to it not being an ideal time to reset? He did by trading away 2 first-round picks. So, like, if he was sitting in his office saying, hey, if I do this trade, that means I'm good for the next couple of years.
Job security.
But press that button. Get the Jets on the line right now. Like that. I don't follow that line of thinking. Now, the we will be healthier or see what we did before the injuries happen, that is a little bit one that I can open my ears to. Now, again, the we will be healthier moving forward, you're banking on Daniel Jones coming off a torn Achilles. Eddie, a conversation we've not had because the news cycle hasn't led to it, but DeForest Buckner has season-ending neck surgery.
Yep.
30-year-olds with neck issues. And Buckner has just sounded different to me this season. Understandably, but he sounded different about his playing future. That's a little concerning. We'll see about Javarius Ward's situation. Again, Braden Smith, I kind of always viewed as probably the passing of the torch there, but, still, that's one that you can't ignore. And you kind of were hinting at this, but like, is your core still ascending? The core hasn't won, but is the core still like arrow pointing up? And let me just throw out a few players, and I don't think they all deserve to be in the same category, to be clear, but a few players that I don't look at and think, that wasn't a very Pro Bowl type of season. And they've had some of those in their careers, or they have had better seasons. Zaire Franklin.
Yep.
Kenny Moore II. Michael Pittman Jr. Is all of it arrow pointing up for all of them? Again, it's a group that's largely getting older. And so that's where I have some more pause to it all. And again, you can play the injury card to a degree, but I mean, what's Kansas City saying about their quarterback? What's Cincinnati saying about their quarterback? What's Baltimore saying about their quarterback? I mean, you got three teams that are going to be sitting on the outside of the playoffs, I guess, if Baltimore misses it. And, it could be Mahomes, Burrow, and Jackson. You don't think those three teams could be knocking on the playoff door next year?
Right.
So I just look, does Chris deserve some credit for trying some different things? Yeah, sure. But does that mean you're rewarded? This isn't Max Bowen's tried a vegetable, so then he gets a treat. I think it's a little different from that aspect of it. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. What would I do?
There's one other thing I want to toss in.
Okay, go ahead.
Like the overarching issue during the Ballard era has been being able to get to the quarterback and, disrupt the quarterback and rush the quarterback. And we're sitting here, Kevin, we're debating, are they going to bring back Daniel Jones? What's the contract look like? What's the contract look like for Alec Pierce? Those two are going to absorb so much of the cap space they have this offseason. They're not going to be able, and they don't have a first-round pick. They're not going to be able to find an adequate replacement on the edge to find consistent pressure. Well,
and let's take that a step further. I'm glad that you brought up that element to it. Okay, let's say injuries are a valid excuse just to play out this game. Then if I'm the powers that be over there making the next decision, I say, okay, let's push this season to the side. Let's look at the other 8 years then. Let's call injuries the reason why this train derailed. Okay, let's look at the other 8 years. All right, what's the hardcore evidence of those 8 years? 2 playoff appearances, 1 playoff win, 0 division titles. And then let's look at the specific blueprint in the position group that you just brought up. There's no position group he's believed in more than the defensive line. I mean, you look at the investments, the draft picks, the trades, the money, and yet I would argue year in and year out, we've gotten to the end of the season and said the return on investment is nowhere near what you've put into that group. Specifically the edge rush.
Yeah.
If you really want to boil it down to one aspect to it. And I think that's where, even if you want to play the injury card here in 2025, fine. If you then remove that year and look at the other 8 years, or I should say, you look at the exact defensive line, specific blueprint, whatever section of the binder that he's been so bullish on, it's just a group that has lacked so much playmaking. So much playmaking. And again, we've gone over the draft picks a million times. First rounders, second rounders, third rounders galore. Money galore into that group. Huge trades. And it's gotten you where it's gotten you. So what would I do? First off, I don't think there's a great answer. I don't think Shane Steichen is like this untouchable head coach. I get that, there are a lot of people that I think a lot of people fall in love with like the offensive element to him, which is important. I don't want to lose sight of that, but they kind of forget the head coaching hat. I'd probably hire a new GM that evaluates Steichen. You trust that person to make the call on him. They can make the call on him as early as this cycle if they would like to. You hire a GM in the first, 10 days of the offseason, and then you got plenty of time still with teams in the playoff race to make a head coaching change. You can point to who was the last head coach hired last year. Was it not Liam Cohen? And look where they're at.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, didn't Liam Cohen get the Jags GM fired?
Yeah.
Didn't he do that, right? Didn't he say, I don't want Trent Baalke, and they got the young dude in there?
Pretty much, yeah.
So, now, I'm a little like, boy, is Steichen, this gets to the point that you were making earlier, Eddie, like, can the head coach recreate a culture? You know? Like that is where I probably pause a little bit at it. And I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I've largely been hey, you need the head coach and GM tied together. Now, you can point to some instances, Chicago this year, of course, of that not being the case. I would certainly move on from some vets. And, if you think Daniel Jones deserves an opportunity to try and prove himself, that's probably your best option, right? To see if Shane Steichen can continue to build on what Jones was showing.
When was the last time we had a head coach in place and a GM hired and there was success?
Well, Chicago this year, but yeah, I mean,
Bowles is gone.
It's not often.
Did I miss that?
Wait, say that again. You mean the GM
where the GM was fired and the head coach was retained?
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I totally misheard that. Yeah, I mean, you don't have that. You don't have that happen very often. I thought it should have happened in Tennessee with Vrabel staying. I guess Vrabel and what's his name? John Robinson, right?
And Rand Carthon.
I think it initially happened in that realm, and then.
But I thought Vrabel's.
I thought not Ben Johnson. I thought John Robinson was the first to go.
Yeah, and then I thought it more towards the end of Vrabel's, tenure there, it was him and the owner than him and the GM.
Yeah, and who knows? But again, there's not a lot of precedent for it. But like, it's just weird to do the 9 years and the 3 years of Ballard and Steichen. It's difficult, I think, to evaluate them individually. How many times do you think in the last 20 years, Eddie, we've had a coach miss the playoffs the first 3 years and get a fourth year?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either.
I'm asking that in all seriousness. And I look at the quarterbacks he's had, I'm kind of thinking, well, I mean, 25-25 is not a horrific record, but, then there's birds on the other shoulder that are like, Kevin, he's 2-9 against the Texans and the Jags. I mean, that's awful. And arranged marriage ain't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was going to make like a chart, okay.
It also is pretty wild that we could have two teams this cycle, Kev, where they're looking for a GM but not a head coach.
Well, and I'm curious about Sunday night. What happens there? Is that going to be the big domino? The loser of Sunday Night Football is gone? Harbaugh or Tomlin? Because now, aren't we missing the big domino? Aren't we missing the big name? Who's Ben Johnson? Who's Jim Harbaugh from the college ranks?
Would that be Joe Brady for Buffalo?
Right, but like Joe Brady's not talked about like Ben Johnson was.
That's true.
It seems like we're missing A, the big candidate, and then B, the big surprise.
A comeback of Mike McCarthy?
Yeah, but yeah. The Harbaugh-Tomlin thing, I think, is interesting. If you see something there. Okay, let's play this out before we get to Twitter questions. Both go, both stay. GM goes, head coach stays. Head coach goes, GM stays. Did I just say that?
I don't know. You said a lot of things. If it were me, both would go.
I would rank it as GM goes, head coach stay, 1A.
Yep.
I'd say both go, 1B. I would drop to 17 on the list for GM stay, head coach go.
Boy, can you imagine if that happened?
And then I'd drop to 18th on the list, both stay.
Can you imagine if that happened, though?
No, I did. No. I can't believe I even said that out loud.
I can't believe that was not 99.
Well, I know.
And how is that? I mean, how is both staying
in the
below
Bowen household?
That?
We're not counting the 99 just yet, so that's probably why.
Yeah. What are we counting to these days?
Actually, Rosie can count decently high. Maxwell's a little bit different on that end. All right. Anything else? Ballard, Steichen, big picture.
I can't think of anything.
Do you not just write the same letter as last year? I can't believe you're not good with just changing a few words. How great would that be?
Oh, gosh.
If they just published the same one. Would you laugh?
It just changed it from Jim Irsay to the Irsay daughters or the Irsay girls or however they want to phrase it.
Now, let's go ahead and play all this out, right? We got a normal week right here. Sunday, 1 o'clock in Houston. last year, correct me if I'm wrong, we had the emotional post-game locker room. Remember that?
I do remember that.
We're 1-0 in 2025, I believe, was a quote from Jim Irsay.
Yep.
Colts beat Mac Jones and the Jags in overtime. The letter was then published, a couple hours later? I'm thinking like a 6 or a 7 o'clock, if I remember correctly. So we await that. Monday will be locker room cleanout. I think Carly Ursay-Gordon's planning to have some sort of State of the Union, but I don't know. We'll await official word. Typically, Ballard talks to the media a few days after that, Steichen the first day after. So here we are, Eddie.
Yes, here we are, Kevin. Let's get into Twitter questions, starting with Drew. I know this is premature because I'm sending this to you during the game, but would you say not finishing in the second half is the indictment for Shane Steichen? I feel as though he is a fantastic coordinator, but has nobody to tell him that what he's doing is not working. The scripted stuff is great, but after the second half, it drops off significantly. Reminds me a lot of Frank Reich.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to come back to the whole 2-9 against those teams. I don't want to psychoanalyze Phillip Rivers playing quarterback for the Colts at age 44, Drew, to be honest with you. I mean, I think your hands are really tied. I'll go back to, do I think there are some issues with that style of a head coach? I do. But again, you have a lot that are successful. I mean, so in the playoffs upcoming here, CEO-wise, it'll be what? Vrabel, Ryans, Jim Harbaugh, whoever wins the AFC North, Sirianni, Todd Bowles, I guess, if they win, Mike McDonald. But then you got a lot of play callers.
Does McDonald not call plays?
Well,
Defense?
I mean, offensively.
Okay.
I just view offensively a little different, man. I think you got to have so much involvement quarterback-wise. And
Did you say D'Amico Ryans?
right. And he has given up, I think, defensive play calling to Matt Burr.
He has.
So, yeah, I just – and I don't know, would the GM then demand Shane to hire some sort of, additional – do you need like the assistant – is there anybody on the Colts staff with the assistant head coach role? Does anybody have that?
I don't know.
You kind of see it. Like Dan Campbell had that for a while at some previous stops. Like, is that something, or is that just a title? To get that person some more money. Those are some questions that I would have. But like, I continue to think Shane Steichen's a pretty good offensive mind. I'm not going to psychoanalyze Phillip Rivers playing quarterback here.
Yeah, this is a good question from Hillary because it's something that I think I heard on, I can't remember what show it was. It might have been J&V. Somebody called in and asked him this same question. But since it's her first year at the helm, who do you think Carly Ursay-Gordon consults or gets input from? I know here and there the sisters can handle 100% on their own. I'm just curious who she might find valuable input from.
Yeah, it's a great question. Great question. There's not a lot of people that have been in the Colts building that have gone, elsewhere around the NFL. Now, two names I do come to mind, like Andrew Berry, the GM with the Browns.
Pete Ward?
Well, Pete Ward internally, certainly.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of two people that have gone elsewhere in the GM roles. Andrew Berry, very, very well respected by Carly Ursay-Gordon and the Ursays.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, that's kind of awkward. He's like an actual GM. But I don't know. I mean, would all of a sudden the Colts try to pry him away? Trying to create a list of GM candidates is difficult. Tom Telesco would be the other name. I think for the most part, Colts fans probably know that name. Longtime Polian confident. And then actually stayed on, I think, for year one of Grigson. And then went to San Diego. So he was in San Diego with Steichen for a while. So if you want to do the little arranged marriage, I don't think it's the healthiest thing to do in the world, but he was the Raiders GM last year, I believe.
I was about to say, wasn't he the Raiders? Yeah.
Yeah, Chargers for a decade, 1 year with the Raiders, and he's still pretty young. I want to say he's just north of 50. So, yes, internally, Pete Ward, COO, been here since the Mayflower move, without question. But, yeah, that's interesting, because
Telesco is 53.
Yeah, so that's still, very young. But Hillary, that's a great question. who are you confiding in? Is it the Dungies and the Napoleons of the world, like up at that level? But again, a lot of the GM stuff I think it's difficult to necessarily know what the assistant is doing in all these cities. What's the assistant doing in Philly? What's the assistant doing in Kansas City? It's tough to truly know what they're doing.
And from the ownership side, you have to wonder this, and I know I mentioned this about a month ago, but we don't know how things are going behind the scenes in terms of the operational side of things with, the inheritance tax and taking over the franchise itself and trying to figure out how to pay that. From that perspective, like business operations and just owning a team in general, because they've gone to the owners' meetings for so many years now, I wonder if there's a level of respect between the Irsay daughters and Sheila Ford Hamp up in Detroit, because she also had to inherit the Detroit Lions from her mother.
Well, and when you bring up the dollars, Eddie, I think we've touched on this a few times, but Sunday, ironically enough, Sunday will be the 11th year anniversary of your last home playoff game. And on last week's podcast, when you were out, I did the list of sporting events that Lucas Oil Stadium has held since then, or just in our market. And Eddie, financially, I felt this way watching the Monday night production around that game last week. It was incredible to me how much love and attention your franchise and your city gets when you're the standalone game.
Yep.
It is, and I don't know how the advertising, marketing, not the advertising dollars, but the eyeballs and the marketing and all that, it's got to be huge for you from a dollars and cents standpoint. And look, I'm not going to act like the Colts are poor, but in ranking the NFL franchises, they're not one of the top 5, top 7 most valuable. So missing out on 11 years of that, wow, that's big time. And the Irsay daughters, all 3 of them, they've got kids as young as 5 to 20. Or however the oldest, one is for Carly. 20 is probably a little bit too old. But what I'm saying is they're all in formative years. Mm-hmm. They're all in schooling years. And Eddie, you and I just witnessed this city come to life with the Pacers.
The Pacers.
Absolutely come to life.
The Fever.
With that run. Fever, sure, but the
now
Pacers
IU
run.
Football as well.
Right. And I guess for the most part, they're an IU family. And just watching all of that, again, that's a little bit financially, but it's just goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
Just how people react to your brand. Yeah, I would think word of mouth.
And the crave that the people around this state have for success.
Right. And I'm feeling a pit in my stomach at that game yesterday. Just naturally how the NFL goes. That was a really good back and forth game.
Yeah.
And I'm this game, I remember coming back from the bathroom with 5 minutes to go being I don't know who's going to win this game. And I'd be it's a meaningless football game. Can you imagine if there were stakes at this game?
Mm-hmm.
That can be just such a beautiful thing for your franchise, for your brand, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I don't think that's lost on Carly, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. With this being the second time that the Colts have had catastrophic breakdowns under 2 different coaching staffs, Frank Reich and Shane Steichen, do you think that this shows signs that there is something wrong with the organization as a whole or in the locker room? That question is from Jared.
Yeah, I think it's super, super relevant. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was hinting at earlier.
Yeah. Great thought, Jared. Certainly. Yeah. Roster building core, does it creep into your DNA? Hell, is it a little bit more mental? Has it gotten to that point?
Does it come back to the toughness?
Yeah.
Chris Ballard.
Right. Tough guys. Right. Didn't he say that?
Yeah.
I did the exercise, Eddie. James and I were talking about this during our morning show.
What kind of exercise you do?
Well, certainly nothing much physically.
Especially during the morning show.
Well, yeah. And boy, I was going to say, the dad bod seems to be creeping up on me awful fast. I go back to the AFC South winners.
It's all those dinosaur nuggets.
Since the Colts last won it. Again, 11 years. Hear me out on this, okay? These are the head coaches and quarterbacks of the teams that have won the AFC South since the Colts last won it. Let's just call Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence the winners this year, okay? So again, head coach and GM. This is in reverse order. Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence. You had DeMeco Ryan, CJ Stroud back-to-back years. 2022, Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence. 2021 and 2020, Mike Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill. You had the O'Brien Watson, 18 and 19 years. 17, Doug Marrone and Blake Bortles. 16, Bill O'Brien and Brock Osweiler. And 15, Bill O'Brien and Brian Hoyer. That list isn't including too many people you're going to hear in Canton, Ohio one day.
Was Osweiler the starter the entire year?
I believe that year he got the most starts. I think Houston started a bunch of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Tom Savage, I think, started for them. That was like the Cleveland Browns playoff team from a few years ago when they started the 4. The AFC South has had a nice year. It ain't been a juggernaut.
Until now.
But, for 10 years, it just, that I think would add to the 11-year drought. Remember Luck to Moncrief 11 years ago Sunday?
Yes.
Was that Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton you beat?
Remember Luck to Hakeem Nicks?
In that game?
Is that Tennessee? Sunday Night Football?
Oh, that opening drive?
Yeah.
God, that was such a great play. Was that when he like rolled out to his left, kind of avoided that sack?
Yeah.
Boy, that was such a great play by Luck. Yeah, it was such a great play.
Sorry to bring up some
might as well.
sore spots for some Colts fans, but we'll try to go through these next 3 questions pretty quickly, Kev. This is from Jamie, who wrote this question at halftime of the game because who cares? It seems like an expensive elite running back is a luxury the Colts can't afford right now. I'd move Jonathan Taylor and hopefully get assets to acquire upgrades on defense. The entire front 7 needs upgraded or is aging. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart are the 2 players that Jamie cited. I, for one, am shocked that a blue chip GM who prides himself on the trenches doesn't have it figured out in year number 9. I'm sure year 10 will be it. Even MJ failed to win the worst division in football for a decade and had 1 playoff win or something like that. Cheers to another year in the middle.
Jamie, cheers. No one is safe. No one's safe. And again, I think if you do make a change like that, you need to recoup some of the draft capital. I mean, no one in this core would be untouchable for me. And let me, like I say, nobody in the 27 and plus core. Let me reward myself if I can. I would listen on Nelson. So that's how I would.
Going in the final year of his contract?
I mean, got a lot of guys like that, which again can be advantageous to you.
Buckner's also in the final year of his contract.
And I'm not
Pittman
team
as well.
Throw an atomic bomb on the situation. But Eddie, you could make a move or let's just say you traded just 2 names, Taylor and Buckner. With Taylor and Buckner, I would hope you could get 2 picks back in the top 60.
Mm-hmm. But are you going to get a top 60 pick for a running back?
Well, again, some combination of it. I think you could get 2. You could be looking at a draft next year where you have 3 picks in the top 60. Which, when you speak it in that terms, that's a little okay, I've got some ammo now to attempt a retool, rebuild, however you want to define it. Again, I don't think we need to necessarily get in that conversation just yet, but there you go.
Yeah. 2 questions left. Josh, hey, Kev and Eddie. I can't help but wonder about outcomes this upcoming offseason, including Shane Steichen's future with the Colts. I do believe this will be the end of the road for Ballard, but I'm perplexed at Steichen's future. Will he get another chance with a new general manager, or will he come off the whiteboard with a cleaning of the house from the new owners for them to have a truly clean slate to start their legacy? Thanks for all you do fighting the good fight in these bleak weeks of the late season.
Yeah, again, Josh, it's hard. I mean,
we're kind of used to it now, aren't we?
Well, I was speaking more to his question than us having to do our jobs here. The whole Steichen, should they just be tied at the hip? I mean, that's a quick conversation, I guess. But if you're going to evaluate them individually, if I'm giving out letter grades, I give the Ballard era, a D-, and I give the Steichen era a C-. And I mean, maybe both those grades are bad enough. You just move on from both. How will Shane grow and learn? I think that would be the question you would have. And is there any GM out there that says, hey, look, I don't think the defensive personnel has been good enough?
No.
So I'm going to make some tweaks there, and maybe that'll help out the head coach.
And I know they're good players, but you can't have that much money invested and two guys up the middle like that, in my opinion, in today's NFL. You have to have more money on the edge than you do in the middle.
More of a Ballard combo. Yes, I would say yes. They're part of the Ballard. Whenever we get to that point of it, there's been issues in the roster building of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. The final question on today's pod is from Colton. Do you think Addy Tomiwa out of Ballard could be a depth staple on the defensive line for years to come? Seems like he generates quite a bit of pressure for a rotational defensive tackle and has great speed. It's worth noting, Kev, when you look at just the defensive line group in general after this season, Kwity Paye, Tyquan Lewis are free agents. Samson Ebukam is also a free agent. So on the edge right now, it's just Laiatu Latu and JT Tuimoloau. They're underneath contract for next year. Neville Gallimore was signed to a 1-year deal, correct, KB? So you've got Addy Tomiwa, Adebawore, Grover Stewart, Eric Johnson, and DeForest Buckner, I think, on the Johnson front underneath contract in that D-tackle room for next season.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah, shout out to Tommy. I think there's been some nice interior rushes from him this season. He's a guy that, I think as a rotational guy, he definitely would have in the mix moving forward. Again, I don't love necessarily you get in the second half there and, there's no quarterback hits whatsoever. But, boy, and that was another game where, and I leaned over and says to Mike Chappell, I was like, I don't know why or how I saw him out on the field, but I was like, gosh, man, another game I just kind of forget about Kwity Paye.
Yep.
And there's just too many of those. But no, Tommy-wise, flash and good situational rusher, by all means. Again, depth staple, sure.
I know it's a little bit of a longer pod, but we had a lot of things to cover on today. Hopefully you had a great Christmas, Kev, and the kids as well.
I appreciate that. Same to you and yours. This will be it for the week. I don't necessarily think there's a need to break down the Colts and Texans, the 10-point underdog. So we'll come back. I don't know what it's going to look like next time, to be honest with you, but we'll be back probably Monday, probably later in the week. I don't know. Something like that. Thanks for listening. Colts Corner, Kevin Bone, signing off.